Today marks the first hearing on the Autopen scandal. Was Biden in control of the country? If not him, then who was?
I mean, from the party that lied to this nation for 4 years. Let's just take a look at some of the things that our colleagues said on the Democrat side when their own Justice Department was concluding that Joe Biden, who, let's not forget, illegally took classified documents and kept them in his garage, in his freezer. I mean, Lord knows where. He just certainly didn't know. Their own Justice Department interviewed the guy and concluded he could not form the requisite mental state to stand trial. He did not have the mental ability to stand trial. And what did our Democrat colleagues say? Vice President Harris says, oh, no, the way that the Hur report characterized the president is so wrong. The president's demeanor is totally fine.
Welcome to Doug in Exile. This is where the happy patriots are. We're going to keep covering this Autopen scandal. Of course, most of the Democrats ditched this hearing. Want to know what you guys think? Will anything happen to the people, or are the Democrats going to get their way and tell everyone just to move on? Here's the first clip investigating the Autopen scandal.
The president's signature is itself the protection of democratic principle. When the president signs, he communicates his assent and endorsement of the action he takes. The Autopen is a device that signs the president's signature to a document. The oversight project, of which I am a board member, has discovered that the Biden White House deployed an Autopen to affix President Biden's signature to pardons, prison commutations, executive orders, and presidential proclamations. The oversight project's research has found that the Biden White House first deployed the Autopen to affix President Biden's signature to a proclamation on day 5 of his administration, and that there were at least 3 different Autopen signatures in use throughout President Biden's tenure in the White House. In June 2022, the Biden White House began deploying the Autopen to sign clemency warrants and executive orders. Autopen use skyrocketed from there. We found that of the 51 clemency warrants issued during the Biden presidency, over half, 32 in total, were signed with an Autopen. And these include some of the most controversial acts of clemency of the Biden presidency, including death row commutations and the preemptive pardons of members of the Biden family, Dr. Anthony Fauci, General Mark Milley, and more that were issued in the final days of the Biden presidency. We reviewed President Biden's schedule in his publicly available media and were unable to find any record of President Biden's personally approving these actions, such as a statement issued by the president himself to reporters.
To me, that's the biggest tell. I'm going to let this continue in just a minute, but they're looking for any evidence that showed that Biden publicly said he would pardon any of these people, his own family, Fauci. All he ever said in public was, I will not pardon Hunter Biden. And then Hunter Biden gets pardoned. Without Biden changing course or making a public statement, that becomes some kind of a theory or evidence that though Biden didn't want these things to happen, other people gave his approval through the Autopen.
In addition, we found that the Biden White House used the Autopen to affix President Biden's signature to clemency warrants and executive orders while the president himself was in Washington, D.C. for at least some of that day, and thus was presumably available to sign important executive actions. Finally, we found multiple days where President Biden wet-signed a bill into law, but used an Autopen to issue an executive order or for other important executive actions. The Biden White House's widespread use of an Autopen to affix President Biden's signatures to documents that exercise executive powers belonging solely to the president poses significant constitutional, legal, and practical considerations. Once the president's signature is copied and loaded into the Autopen, the machine can sign documents as the president himself would. To be blunt, by using the Autopen, anyone can sign documents as the president himself. Now, to be clear, I'm not here today to suggest that the Autopen is bad. It's just technology. I'm here today because of questions concerning President Biden's capacity and whether the Autopen was used to usurp presidential power or to conceal the president's decline. As the sitting president's mental acuity declined, potentially to the point of incapacitation, his administration's expansion of the powers of the presidency raises more questions than answers. Any investigation into this matter should focus not only on whether President Biden directed or authorized subordinate staff to take action in certain instances, but whether he had the capacity to do so at all. The 25th Amendment lays out clear procedures for what to do when the president is incapacitated. It was carefully drafted and informed by our nation's history. The Biden administration ignored it all to aggrandize executive power and push the country further further in their preferred ideological direction. It is our obligation at this point to get to the bottom of these issues and to ask the important question as to whether or not the Autopen and other devices were used to cover and obscure President Biden's mental decline, undermining our national security and also the Constitution.
Especially the Constitution. Democrats don't care, of course, about the Constitution. They're like, they wouldn't even say, how dare you accuse us of undermining the Constitution. They would Autopen, they replaced Biden with Kamala Harris illegally without a vote. They just started running any candidate they want. They don't care about the votes. That's just the way they do things.
They lied to us for 4 years, and we know they lied. They know they lied. It's why they're not here. They don't want to answer a single question. They can't bear to show their faces in public. And you know what? It's right that they can't do that, because the bill of goods they sold this country, they walked this country right into one of the greatest constitutional crises of our history, And now they are afraid to even show up to admit it. These are people, and this is a party that cannot be trusted with power.
Here's the Autopen presidency. The constitutional crisis of Biden's presidency is this hearing's title. This is Eric Schmidt, Republican, Montana, speaks at today's Senate Judiciary Committee hearing, Unfit to Serve: How Biden Cover-Up Engaged America and Undermined the Constitution.
For 4 years, we had a president who could barely string together coherent sentences after 6 p.m. Yet, this glaring fact went unreported, undiscussed, and unaddressed. Why? Because the Democrat Party, corporate media, federal bureaucracy, and big tech companies collaborated to conceal the truth from the American people, not out of ignorance. Under President Biden, the Autopen became a troubling symbol, a symbol of an absentee president and an executive branch directed by nameless, faceless aides that no one outside of Washington, D.C. had ever heard of and no one ever voted for. It was the Autopen presidency, a government run by committee rather than a leader chosen by the American people. The left and the corporate media place their pursuit of power above the welfare of your families and your country. They dismissed your observations, urging you to not to trust your own eyes. We have a solemn duty to call this what it is, an abdication of constitutional duty. As was stated in Federalist 51, ambition must check ambition. If a president is mentally unfit to serve, we need a dependable mechanism to, at the very least, ensure that the truth reaches the American people.
Oh, yeah, that would probably be the media, but you're not going to get the truth through the media. What a massive scandal, anti-Constitution scandal. I think we all know Democrats don't care. This is going to all be the Republicans having to do all the heavy lifting on this. Here's Trump on the Autopen comment this morning.
I mean, so much of our effort goes to getting people out of the country that should have never been here in the first place. What he's done to this country, it's not him. He had no idea what was going on. Everybody knows that. It's other people. It's Lisa and this one and that. All these people, all this scum that was around the Oval, the Oval Office. Or
all this scum. There's a quote for you. Trump calls, that's the last president. That panel of people, they were your president. That unknown mass of people. And Trump calls them scum, making the last president scum.
Around the beautiful Resolute desk, telling this guy, here, do this, do that, and not even telling him. They just go over to the Autopen and sign whatever the hell they wanted to sign. Because say what you want about Biden, he wasn't for open borders. He wasn't for transgender for everybody. He wasn't for men playing in women's sports. But he has no idea what the hell, he has no idea. And they were very upset. They wanted Bernie Sanders. And after about a week of this guy, they said, wait a minute, we just hit gold. This guy has no clue. He'll do anything we tell him. And then they realized they don't even have to get permission. They just go up to the Autopen. That's a subversion. That's a takeover of our government. And you people ought to start looking at it.
Yeah, you people, he's talking to the press. When are you people going to start looking at that? And they're not gonna, he already knows they're not gonna. Here's more, here's Mike Benz over on, what's this channel? Real America's Voice with John Solomon. This is great news.
I'm shocked, and it takes a lot to shock me.
Yeah,
when this story first broke, I thought that there must be some details about it that are more speculative than you can rely on. But the more I read the piece that you published and saw what Kash submitted to Chuck Grassley, there are several levels of this that are concerning almost beyond belief. So obviously the first family itself was taking millions of dollars from China. The Biden first family through Hunter Biden and China CEFC Energy, China CEFC Energy was taking $5 to $10 million in consulting fees from Chinese energy firms as Hunter Biden was flying on Air Force One to China with Vice President Biden in order to secure those deals.
Okay, so this is about the money train showing that the Bidens, not Joe. Remember, Joe was the one on the contract with Hunter Biden in China that said the big guy gets 10%. And what did China do with the money? I mean, why were they paying the Bidens so much money? Why did they get so much money? Not for a product, but you saw it in the 2020 election results that he's speculating that they purchased those votes. Biden agreed to give China, I don't know, favored status. And China agreed to manufacture these votes and flush them into our system from outside of the country. And the Bidens make a big spike of money and the votes go up. Every time China gives money to Bidens, the votes for Biden went up in 2020 by like 8 to 10 million votes. That's the proposal anyways. I don't need to get into the Autopen scandal a little more on this. Let me do Chuck Schumer, because this goes into how are the Democrats going to handle this? They're just going to try to say, look, that's ancient. The American people don't care about Biden's health. We need to move on. That's the Democrats' thing on everything. All the way back to Clinton. Remember, it was moveon.org. They're saying time to move on from this instead of investigate it.
What do you make of the Republicans holding this hearing on President Biden's cognitive abilities tomorrow and talking about the 25th?
This is the kind of coarseness that America doesn't like. And they're just unrelenting in diversionary actions. This has nothing to do with cutting Medicaid.
He says that we Republicans are engaging in diversionary tactics. How dare we? And yet this in itself, what he's saying right now is a diversionary tactic. They asked him about the Autopen, and he's saying the Republicans will not address Medicaid, Social Security. So I'm going to zip it back a little bit and play it again.
With cutting Medicaid costs, cutting Medicaid help, helping clean energy, keeping hungry kids fed.
Oh, it's for the children. Anytime the Democrats are rolling out the children, grab your wallets. It's for the children. That's Chuck's conclusion. What about the Autopen scandal, Chuck Schumer? He goes, they're trying to distract you from what's really important as he distracts you from what's really important, which is the Autopen scandal.
They all changed their tunes after Joe Biden debated President Trump, and the whole world could see he couldn't even form a sentence. That running this guy for president again is a form of elder abuse. My, how they changed their tunes after that. Now they can't even show up in public to talk about it. This is embarrassing. But worse than that, it's dangerous. It is dangerous for this country.
This is a constitutional crisis, what happened with Joe Biden and the Autopen. That is a undermining and overthrow of the country by probably these rich oligarchs that are in the Biden administration, his handlers, his panel, might be Obama doing a phone in. But they were signing whole documents. Biden never mentioned the positions in public that they were signing for. He never showed mental approval.
So what you're saying is that there should be, for every time that Biden authorized the Autopen, there should be a record of that. And he should have had to have registered his personal consent to using the Autopen. Is that basically correct?
I think to put it another way, I would say in the policy paper flow to the Oval Office, there should be a record of what documents are presented to the president when he gave his assent to the actions that are listed in those documents.
He never showed that he was for them. Suddenly, just the Autopen would just sign it for him. Ice cream. I need to go on vacation. What do you guys think? Does this scandal continue to be investigated with more information coming out and gaining traction? Or do the Democrats succeed in making it go away with their theory that America is over this and want to move on? Can you be distracted? I'm Doug in Exile.